Good evening, Dinesh. It's a real pleasure to have you today with us. I know that you have an excellent background and experience in handling large enterprise sales, and that's exactly I was very keen to chat with you and find your perspective on how to handle large enterprise customers. So most of our audience would be really eager to learn from you. Welcome to today's session, Dinesh.
Thanks a lot, Sid. Thanks for considering me to have a chat with you and discuss on sales. So basically, I have been in sales for the last 18 years in the fire and security industry. So it is a little different industry. It's a little niche when you talk about the FMCG and all that. It's a very smaller market. But yeah, my basically I have been more into enterprise as well as small SME. I've started with a small SME and moved to an enterprise. I would say organization, and overall the process has been more to do where I have been working, and probably if I can add value to uh, the discussion what we have.
Sure, great. I think you started with the right points about SMEs and large corporates. So, what is the difference in approach when we, let's say, target an SME to sell a product vis-a-vis when we target a large enterprise to sell a product at a very
So,
basic
so if
and
you look,
elementary level?
so basically, if you look at specifically from a sales perspective for a sales manager or a sales executive or at a ground level sales guy, I don't think the sales changes. The sales approach still remains the same. You need to be disciplined. You need to have a thorough knowledge of the product. You need to identify what is your target customer base. So if you look at for a sales guy or a sales manager or a sales leader, it purely remains the same. When you talk about an SME and an enterprise customer, but when you try to go and sell to these customers, you know what will play a role for you to close the sales or for you to work with these customers is, if you look at a large enterprise customer, if you want to sell to say a CTS or to a Microsoft, which are large entities by itself.
Mm.
So, one is you might have to work your way up the ladder in that organization, and it would take at least 5 to 6 meetings for you to reach to the decision maker in the organization to close that sale. And if you look at from an SME standpoint, your first sale call might be with the owner of the organization, and he might be the decision maker itself. So where you take 5 to 10 calls to close a deal, you might do it in a couple of calls away. Then if you look at it is if you look at large organization, it is, I would say, the hierarchy of the organization which also plays a role, because if I want to do a sale, say for a Microsoft, okay, I would say I want to do my own product sales to Microsoft. So I would be interacting with multiple levels uh, within the organization to basically get a buy-in. Okay, so I might have a discussion with the IT folks in the organization. I might have a discussion with say the managing director of the organization. I might have a discussion with the project manager of the organization. So them the hierarchy will play a role in getting a decision yes for my sales to happen. But finally, I would end up and my sales would happen with the purchase guy. So there would be multiple layers when I talk about from a sales standpoint, uh, and in an SME, uh, the customer would know what he wants to buy, and then only he would try to reach out to me. And in my first call itself, he would talk about all the details what is required from the product standpoint, from the pricing standpoint, and from availability, lead times, all that, whatever is required from a sales process. He would talk about all that, and probably in the second deal he would negotiate and close the deal. But whereas in an SME enterprise space, this would take a longer time. Then if you look at one major aspect which plays in the decision making, when you look at an SME versus an enterprise, okay, is their buying power. When you look at these organization, and that's where if you talk from marketing terms, Porter's 5 force theory, plays a major role, because when you look at an enterprise customer, he would have a strong buying power, and he would have, you know I would say 10 or 15 such sellers who would be aligned with those such buyers because of their sheer power or the bandwidth with which they operate. But when you look at an SME, he would hardly have any interaction. So whatever you tell, and especially if you are representing also an enterprise, um, I would say organization, whatever you say, that customer would buy in much faster. An SME customer would buy in much faster, but an enterprise customer, even if you're an enterprise or even if you're an SME, you have to go to the rigor of this, to get yourself, you know pitched in, have that relation with the customer. Then one is from a competitive landscape, of one is from the buying standpoint. Then is the competitive landscape. Is what is my competitive landscape? Am I selling a niche product, okay, where my demand is much more and my supply is limited? Or am I having a demand which is less, and the supply portion is on the higher side? So if that landscape plays a major role, my chances of getting a sale in an enterprise would be much more difficult. But from an SME standpoint, it would be a fairly a little easier. All I'm saying, I'm not saying from a perspective that it's easy to sell an SME and you can just go and sell. I'm not of that opinion. It is just the kind of effort you will require, and if you want to measure your productivity over a period of time, you would say that I have cracked an enterprise account. It took me 3 months or 3 years. I'm just giving a bandwidth. But if you talk about an SME customer, the bandwidth would be from a week to a month. But if you look at the opportunity size, when you look at such large customers, you are talking about a larger revenue base. You can at least look at 10% of revenue coming in from such large customers. But when you look at these small SME customers, your since they are SME, their buying power is less. Your contribution from a productivity standpoint would be 1 or 2% only.
Right.
So this is where it differentiates between a large enterprise and small SME, right from the buying decision, from the competitive landscape, and the organization hierarchy which is there. The last bit which I would focus on specifically in the enterprise space is the serviceability. That it is not only that I come to you, you are an enterprise customer, I do the sales and I walk away. It will not happen, especially in the B2 world. It never happens that way. I have to ensure that I service you. And as a sales focal, I need to ensure that you get the right support, right from the sales to operations to supply chain. You name the functions in the organization, finance, credit, everything will play a role. And you, not only in your organization, it will also play in my organization. If you are an enterprise customer, all these functions will play a role. In my organization, I will have to play the role in all these functions, and I have to follow the process, which is a little painful when it comes to larger organization, but it is for the betterment, so that you know what is the standard operating procedure. But when you come from an SME customer, the decision maker, it might be a single man office, a small office, home office. That can be the size. The total headcount of the organization itself might be around 10 to 12 people. So the decision making will stop at there. And serviceability is also, you don't have to look at all these aspects. You just have to look at product support, and that's it. Your sales is done for that customer.
Yeah, but from a new sales guy's perspective, let's say somebody who's trying to make inroads into a large enterprise, vis-a-vis,
Hmm.
as you rightly said, for an SME, he can just barge in and try to meet the CEO or the decision maker. But in a large enterprise, there are multiple stakeholders involved. So
Hmm.
the decision maker could be somebody, Mr. X, but whom does this sales guy approach first? Because breaking entry is itself difficult. It's a challenge in itself. So what do you recommend for a sales guy trying to make inroads into such a large enterprise? What should we do first to open the gates?
So Sid, over here, again, it comes to, from a sales standpoint, it comes from which organization you come from. If you are
Right.
coming from a smaller organization, you need to start with a cold call, get hold of someone through references, get hold of some guy within the organization where you can, have that first call, have that first meeting, build your relationship, build your credibility with that guy. That guy might not play a role at all
Hmm.
in the larger schemes of things. He might not play a role at all from your business standpoint, but you need someone to go in and get hold of that.
So
But
you're
if you are
saying
coming from
networking
an
is very critical.
yes,
Networking
yes,
is critical for large enterprise. The conventional thought that one can go and knock doors may not always work, right?
May not. And see, when you were talking about today, we are living in the world which is a little more digital, and people appreciate their time, specifically after the COVID time. I would want the meeting to start on time, and I would want the meeting to end on time, because that's how things are changing. Specifically for an enterprise customer, he would not meet you unless and until he sees value in you. He
Hmm.
would not even spend 5 minutes of his time if he doesn't see value. So you
Hmm.
need to build your credibility, and you might have to come through the hierarchy of the organization, start at a very junior level in the organization, have some relationship, go build it up. Then you'll probably reach to say purchase guide. Say if you want to go into L&T, it's a large buyer. If I want to go into L&T, I have to probably do a 2 months camping in that organization to identify map. And one of the biggest things from a sales standpoint is mapping. If I'm able to map people in the organization who are going to help. There are many, and this is more from a sales standpoint. There are many guys in the organization who might not uh, be instrumental in closing that sale for you, but they would be instrumental in influencing the buyer within the organization for the sale to happen. So for from an SME standpoint, it you know you have to this is more from an enterprise. For a new guy, he's looking at an enterprise customer. He has to look at the organization, map the organization, and if he's coming from an enterprise organization itself, he might have a foothold in the organization already. He might know some people in the higher ups because of his organization strengths. He might be new to that organization, but because of his organization strength, he might know, okay, I know Microsoft, this is the purchase guy, this is his contact number, this is email ID. I can drop in an email, ask for a request, and since I'm an enterprise account itself, he might still give me time even though I am new. But for a new guy from an SME side, trying to take an appointment in an enterprise, it's going to be a big challenge. He has to go through the churn of the salesperson, and I think that's where the maximum learning is. And again, when in my first organization, when I was trying to take an appointment in HUL, I had to go to the grind. It took me 3 months to get an appointment. I was calling each and everyone, because at that point in time, landlines were the way to call people, and it used to go to a reception, and she would transfer it. It would go to somebody else, and he would say that I'm not the guy. So it has to go there. Today the process is a little more simpler, but still people value the time. So you need to understand this bit, and the process might be longer in enterprise, but it's more fruitful in the long run. The process in an SME might be shorter, but again, this will also be fruitful. It depends on how you build that relationship and credibility in the long run.
Great, Dinesh.
So,
One important question, because we are talking about two different segments. So, for a sales guide, I have seen that many organizations classify enterprise sales managers differently vis-a-vis the SME sales managers. So, what difference in qualities do these people have in different verticals, or rather different departments?
so when you talk about enterprise sales, by the name itself, it is enterprise. So you are talking about larger organization, larger value in terms of revenue, okay, and larger cycle, okay, larger closure cycle. So it might, specifically in a project business, it can take a couple of months and can go up to years. So that's the turnaround time when you talk about enterprise accounts. So from a sales standpoint, if I have to look at individuals, if I have two businesses, and we do have two businesses. So if I look at enterprise customers, and if I look SMB customers, small and medium businesses, and enterprise sales. So from a quality standpoint, one thing which is different in enterprise versus SMB is, I would look at an enterprise sales guys to be more based in tier 1 cities, because most of the concentration of these large enterprise would be in tier 1 cities. But if you look at an SMB, I would want to spread my wings thin. I want to go to tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. because that's where you will find the smaller, customers. That's from a more from a geographic standpoint. If you look at the second level is the kind of transactions. If I'm doing an enterprise sales, I might do one or two calls in a day, and it would be to large accounts, and that call might go from a minimum of 45 minutes can go up to 2 hours or 3 hours, depending on the kind of discussions we are having with those organizations, because there would be multiple people who would come and have that discussion and all. But if you look at an SMB, the discussion for the sales guy, it is how many customers I can meet in a day. It is more of quantity, where you are talking over here is quality. There
So
he
what are the
would say
qualities
that,
that you
okay,
would look for in a sales guy if you have to appoint a large enterprise manager and an SMB manager? What are the difference in qualities
see,
that you see?
first, the most important skill when you talk about enterprise customer is communication. You have to look at uh, the guy's communication with respect to vocal as well as written. Okay, so verbal as well as written communication is the most important thing. That's the first thing you would look at. You would look at the presentability of the sales guy, uh, in terms of uh, you know how he looks, what's his personality, and how does he approach a customer. Um, then you would look at is the knowledge, a subject matter expert, I would say. What is his knowledge on that particular subject? Because in an enterprise sales, you can't say, "Sir, I will come back to you." It's a clear no. For an enterprise customer, you have got the appointment. You have to ensure that you get the maximum out of that meeting. So you have to ensure that that guy has the product knowledge. And the most important thing, at least in the enterprise space, because price plays a major role, and organizations will not function if they don't make money. So how is he capable to communicate the value of your product or the service to the customer, and how he can drive that value from that customer in terms of sales? But when you look at an SMB, okay, you would look at quality is how agile and mobile he is, how fast he can, move from one location to another, how many customers he can meet, and how he can build that relationship. So over here, you are talking about relationship building in an organization where you are talking on multiple people within the organization. Here you are talking about how he can meet more customers, or multiple people in a different organization. So here you might meet 10 customers in a Microsoft, but here you are going to Ahmedabad or a Surat, you are meeting 10 customers who are small SMB customers. So you would look at how mobile, agile he is in terms of meetings his customers. And the third bit is how fast or how quick he is able to turn around his sales. Okay, an enterprise, you look at 10 calls to close the sales, you have to look at 2 calls. If the sales guy is going more than 2 calls, my question to him would be, why are you wasting time? You can't meet the same customer twice in a month. It's a strict no. You have to close the sales not more than 2 times. It can't go to the third call. So these are the aspects which you look at a sales guy. Communication plays a role, but in a SMB, I would look at, if I'm and this is very unique to India, from a demographic standpoint, because every 200 kilometer a language changes. So if I'm recruiting a person in Ahmedabad, I would see that he knows Gujarati. Okay, that will play a major role. In enterprise space, I would look at pure English. But in SMB, I would look at, does he know the local language? Can he communicate in the local language? For Maharashtra, I don't think so. It plays a major role. Marathi doesn't play a major role. But if I have to recruit someone in Solapur, or if I looking at recruiting someone in Pune, I would look at language. So if is he conversant in the local language, because that helps to build relation in SMB.
Fantastic.
So
So
this is what I look at.
yeah, so I think
I hope I'm answering your questions.
yeah, I have quickly made a summary of what we discussed. I think the four important points which I could take away from this conversation regarding the right skills that an enterprise sales guy should have is he should be good at networking because he cannot go knocking at the doors. He should know how to network
Yes.
or build from the existing contacts that his organization might have had from the existing relationships. He should have an awesome product knowledge. He should be a master of the product so that he doesn't have to say, I'll come back to you. That is a strict no in enterprise sales. You're getting an opportunity with great difficulty, and you cannot say, I will come back to
Yes.
you. Third, excellent communication skills in English, which is required in enterprise sales, and obviously presentation skills. Great. Dinesh, thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Any more questions?
No, thank you so much.